So, good afternoon once again. So, yesterday we stopped at the dividend of what? Irrelevant. Dividend, can you give me? So, can you hear me, please? Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Hello. We are with you.
Yesterday we stopped at the theory of irrelevance, and then from there we look at Modigliani and Miller in the era of no tax, and we are able to demonstrate the argument what Miller is arguing on, that dividend is not relevant because what the company need to focus is that they should retain their earnings for future projects in terms of business expansion. And Miller and Modigliani further argue that if company peradventure they go ahead to seek for loan, issue out new shares, it can expose them to risk in such a way that they might lose control of the business, as well as if the company they are unable to meet up their financial obligation, it can also lead to liquidation. And also yesterday, I let us realize that there is a theory that we met on ground, which is called traditional theory, which traditional theory believes that dividend is relevant and it will affect price of shares. And also yesterday, we look at the reasons and advantage of use of what retained earnings. From there, we also look at the consequence that we can expose ourselves to if we are not follow what Miller and Modigliani is talking about. Anyway, that's the belief of Miller and Modigliani. And we also look at the Miller and Modigliani assumptions when they were able to say the company will maintain a fixed interest policy. And I think we also discussed that the risks of uncertainty do not exist. And at the same time, we look at it from the angle of where Miller and Modigliani was saying that no associated cost for new investments. It means that if you are using purely your retained earnings, there won't be any associated cost for new investment. Another thing is that we also look at, it is when Miller and Modigliani was saying the assumption that in the era of no tax, that even though if there is a taxation, that the same tax rate is applicable to capital gain and dividend income. And also we look at when Miller and Modigliani was saying that the perfect certainty by every investor as to what's it called, future investment and profit of the company. So these are the area that we touched yesterday, and I'm able that there's nothing to worry about if we truly follow what we did yesterday. I'm also certain that for this little summarization that I did just now, we should be able to recap what we did yesterday. So today, we are going to look at the dividend supremacy theory. And the dividend supremacy theory, those that propounded this theory in person of Professor Walter, the people who propounded this theory in person of Professor Walter and what's it called, MJ Godion. So these people argued, that dividend is relevant. Dividend are relevant. They argue that dividend are what? Are relevant and also matter. That dividend are relevant and what? Also matter
And
in the determination of what? Share price. This is their belief. So Professor Walter and MJ Godion argue, like when Modigliani and Miller was arguing that dividend is not relevant. So Professor Walter and MJ Godion also argue that dividend are relevant and also matter in the determination of what? Of share price. And the reason why they argue this is that they have an opinion, that is, on their opinion, they have on their opinion what? Opinion or their views. Because when they are telling us that dividend is relevant, according to Professor Walter and the MJ Godion, their own argument is that dividend is what? dividends are relevant and also matter in the determination of share price. It means that when they say dividend is what is relevant, it means that it is relevant to pay dividend because they see that this matter a lot in determination of what share price of the company. And then if we now begin to question them as in their own opinion on their, that is why I say they have on their opinion or their view, is that one of their view is that when we look at what's it called? They said the market price of any company that's their own opinion. The market price of any company depends on the following. One, you know, when they were argue that dividends are relevant and also matter in determination of share price. So the reason why they said that is that they have their own point of view that when we are talking about the market price, so the market price of any company will determine on the following that I want to mention that you have to determine the size of dividend paid. That is their own opinion. That when you say we should not pay dividend, and they said, oh, no, Modigliani and Miller, you are not doing the right thing, you are saying rubbish. That the market price of a company depends on the size of dividend paid. Hello, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So this is what Professor Water and N.J. Godion was telling us, that they are trying to counter what Modigliani and Miller was trying to tell us. Because Modigliani and Miller was saying that it is not relevant, that the payment of dividend are not relevant. But Professor Water and N.J. Godion was saying that, look, dividend is relevant because it matters in the determination of share price. And when people are trying to question it, then that why did you say this? They now said I have my own opinion. Also, in my view, that the market price of any company depends on what? On the size of the dividend paid. Not only that, they further give another opinion that the growth rate in dividend, the growth rate in dividend three. They also further explain that the growth rate in dividend, and not only that, they said the shareholder required rate of return rate of what? Return in reinvestment reinvestment, in the company. And so
What happened? Okay. Data ti tán o. Ṣé gbọ́ mi mà? Hello.
Mo gbọ́ mi ò dáhùn.
Madam Salami. Madam Salami. Ọ̀ sí bẹ́ẹ̀ ni. Madam Abọ́sẹ̀dé.
Alhaji mo.
Data ti tán, ẹ bá ṣe data kan ga wa o.
Èmi ò ní dátà tí mo wà lójú títì. Títì mo wà.
Ẹ lè ṣe lórí fóònù yẹn, a máa fún yín lówó padà.
Wọ́n ní mi ní dátà.
Hello, good morning. Sorry, me Bongo. Hello, sorry, am I the only one? Hello.
àdìsí data àti máa padà wọlé sí. Ó máa padà wọlé sí. Àlàyé ti dé o. Iṣẹ́ ti lọ o. Ṣé àwọn ìdánwò okay.
Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, sir.
So, and this is the opinion or their view about the argument. That is what they use to support their own argument, that dividends are relevant because it matters in determination of what? Determination of share price. And their view is that the market price of any company depends on the following, where we talk about the size of the dividend paid, the size of the dividend paid, the growth rate in dividend the growth rate in dividend, the shareholders require rate of return in reinvestment in the company, in reinvest in the company, in reinvest in the company, in reinvest in the company,
Hello, Wale Bada.
and so in the rate retention. Who is that person? That person should move, please.
M10.
The shareholder will want their company to pursue a retention policy that maximizes the value of their shares. So this is the view of what? Of Professor Walter and M.J. Gordon about the supremacy theory. And also, they also have their own assumption. They also have their own what? Assumption. Assumption of what? Assumption of dividend relevance, dividend supremacy theory. Let me write it clearly. Dividend relevance theory. So please and please by Professor Walter, because Walter suggests his own assumption separately, while Gordon also suggests his own assumption separately. So that we have to be very careful if you see something like this in an exam, so that you not be picking the one that belongs to Walter for Gordon, and you not be picking the one that belongs to Modigliani to replace another one. So this one is basically the assumption of dividend relevant theory by only, that is why I say by Professor Walter. Number one, the assumption of the Professor Walter is that the firm finances the firm finances all investment the firm finances all investment through retained earnings. So this is what Walter was saying, through retained earnings. Finances all investment through retained earnings. That is, what does that mean? It means that firm only use their retention to finance the business. Hello, are we there? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Sir, we are here.
Okay, so Walter also further explained that the firm maintain, so you have to know what they are trying to deduce here. That is from the first point. Walter said that the firm finances all investment through retained earnings. That is, if there is an investment opportunity, firm don't need to borrow money. That's the assumption that Walter was saying. that firm finances all investment through retained earnings. He also further in his assumption that the firm maintain constant work. The firm maintain constant work, weighted average cost of capital, and the internal rate of return, IRR, internal rate of return, that is firm maintain constant work and internal rate of return. He also further explained that the firm, in his assumption, the firm has a very long or hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Perpetuity life what's going on? Perpetuity life. So this perpetuity life simply means infinite life. That's the meaning. So it was saying that the firm has a very long or perpetuity life, that is continuity. That is the assumption of the words of the what's it called? Professor Water. Sorry, my pen is not showing because of network. Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And Water also talk about the corporate tax, is not exist. Corporate tax does not exist. So Water, in his assumption, he said corporate tax does not exist. And Water also further in his assumption that all retained earnings all earnings, he further explained that all earnings are either, that's the clause that is there, that is all earnings that they have, all the profits are either distributed, there's a clause there, either distributed as dividend, that is all. Look at that statement, all profits are either, that's the clause, are either, this is the clause that is there, are either distributed as dividend, or they should do what with it, they should network. Or they should do what to it? They should reinvest it. That's the two options. He said either they distribute it as dividend or they reinvest. That is that money, they just plug it back to the business and reinvest it. They should what? Reinvested internally. Internally, that is immediately. So this is the assumption of what? Of the, what's it called? Professor Water. And this assumption that you see that Professor Water was trying to deduce here also have it also has limitation. There's a limitation to this assumption. Limitation to Water assumption. Network. Limitation to what? Water assumption. Water assumption. So number one is that Water assume. Hello, are we there? Hello. 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 Water assume that. Water assume that. Oh, my marker is from page. My marker is from 20. Hold on, please. Sorry, hold on. The marker is fluctuating. You can see it's not picking. Okay. Water assume that investment Water assume that, let me clean it. Water assume that investment, hope you can see the handwriting very well. Investment are exclusive finance by retained so this is the limitation by retained earnings and no external financing is used. So it means that all the investments are exclusively financed by retained earnings. That retention that they have. So all investments are what? Exclusively financed and no external finance is used. So when they say external finance, it means that we are not going to consider by using the money that we borrow to do that investment. So this model of a thing is only applicable to all equity firms. This only applicable to all equity firm. When I said equity firm, what I'm saying is that company have two options for investment. Any company that invests through equity, some company can invest through equity only, and while some company can invest through equity and debt. Some company can invest by using their equity and debt. Debt means by way of borrowing money. While some company can invest on equity only. Equity only. So any firm, any firm that invests using equity only, such firm or such business will expose to what we call business risk. Business risk. Take note of that. Any firm who use equity only equity only for investment, those business can only expose to what? To business risk. To business risk. Business risk. BR. Business risk. But if a firm is investing through equity and debt, such business will invest in what is called financial risk. Financial risk. It means that such firm will be exposed to both business risks and financial risk. Both business risks and financial risk, because you invested on equity and debt. It means that you are exposed to business risk and financial risk. But if you invest through equity alone, you only exposed to what? Business risk. Is that clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So
Please,
what
it's
this is
not clear.
what the limitation of water assumption. This is what the limitation to water assumption is talking about. That water assume that investment are what? Exclusively financed by retained earnings, and no external finance is used. This external finance they are talking about here is what? It is when we are talking about debt finance, when you are borrowing money from outsider. You are sourcing your fund maybe through bank loan. So, but water limitation to assumption was saying that the investment are what? Exclusively financed by retained earnings, and no, look at that word, and no external finance is used. So, and I said this limitation that water was saying is that it only applicable to all equity firm. That is the firm, any firm that is financed through equity alone. It means that this limitation is only applicable to them. And I further explained that when they say somebody is financed through equity alone, it means that that company will only expose to business risk. But if any company invests on both equity and debt finance, it means that such business will be exposed to business risk and financial risk. Are we there?
Yes.
Are you sure we are getting it?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. So another limitation to the water assumption is that the internal rate of return, IRR, is constant based on the assumption. Is assumed to be constant, right? That is based on the assumption that IRR is assumed to be constant, which is not realistic. Which is not realistic. You know, in his assumption, he's saying that IRR and the weighted average cost of capital is what? It maintained constant. So, but there's a limitation to that. That's why he further to tell us the limitation that this IRR is assumed to be constant, but which is not realistic. So, another limitation to that is that the cost of capital is also assumed to be constant It's also assumed to be constant It's also assumed to be what? To be constant. So when Professor Water discussed his own assumption and limitation, then the Gordon also states his or her own what's it called? Assumption of dividend relevant. Are we tired, please?
No.
Relevant theory by M.J. Gordon. M.J. Gordon. M.J. Gordon. So, number one assumption of M.J. Gordon is that he also said the same thing about corporate tax. Corporate tax does not exist. Does not exist. He also talked about corporate tax does not exist. It's also as the way Water mentioned about corporate tax, that the corporate tax does not exist. So Gordon also said corporate tax does not exist. So Gordon said that the growth rate is constant. The growth rate is constant, and the retention ratio ratio is also constant. Retention ratio is also constant. Gordon also talked about the cost of capital. Cost of capital is greater than the growth rate. He said the cost of capital is greater greater than the growth rate. So Gordon also talked in his assumption that the firm has a very long life. And I explained this that when they said it has a very long life, it means that infinite life. That is, what's it called? I say perpetuity. Perpetuity. That is infinite life. That is long life. Perpetuity. And then Gordon also said the same thing about what Professor Water was saying, that IRR and what's it called? Weighted average cost of capital. He also talked about IRR and weighted average cost of capital is also constant. You can see that the assumptions are more how is it called? The assumption, they are interrelated.
Similar.
Yes. It is what? Interrelated. Like IRR and WACC is also constant. And the firm has a very long life and perpetuity. And what's it called? Let me see what I put here. Because the assumption about business risk and okay. So it's the same. So the assumption is that the firm, he also said that firm is all equity finance, all equity finance, all equity what? Finance. Hello, are we there?
Yes, sir, we're with you, sir.
Hello. So all equity firm is all equity finance. And I said, what I mean by all equity finance is that they can only what? They can only expose. So as a result of this, they can what? They can only expose. Expose to what? Who can try? Expose to what?
Business
Exposed to what?
Business risk or
Financial
financial
risk.
risk.
No, it cannot be financial risk.
Financial risk.
It cannot be financial risk
Business.
now.
Equity alone, abi? It's business risk.
Where is business risk? So firm is all equity finance, so they can only expose to business risks. But I said, let assume the assumption is that let assume that the assumption is that the firm is both equity and the debt finance. It means that they will be exposed to business risk and financial risk. But please mute yourself. Please mute your mic. So firm is all equity finance. And that's all. And yesterday, I also mentioned one thing about another area of a theory of dividend. Other areas of what? Theory. Other area of what? Theory of dividend. Theory of dividend. And I mentioned that when Who can remind us? I said when a company is putting priority when a company is putting what? Priority before, when a company is putting priority before the company will commit, if you remember yesterday, this is what I said, before the company will commit the available cash the available what? Available profit. Available profit on capital need, a capital project, And I said, this implies that, hello, are we there?
We are with you.
I said this implies, you can mute yourself, please. This implies that the dividend is paid then viable projects. What I mean by viable projects, who can try? Can be executed.
The one that will give more return, a big good return. Project that will give
project,
good
okay.
So the project that brings what? That is profitable. That is a project that is viable. If a project is giving you net present value, positive net present value, we say that project is viable. So this is another what? Another area of what? Theory of dividend. And we call this, and this is called, who can remind us? I said this yesterday. This is called what?
Theory, active theory.
Active theory. Active theory. It is called active theory because active theory is telling you that there should be a what? A priority. So you have to give a priority on the available profit. Because if you don't do that, company can go ahead and use that money for capital projects. So when you give a priority to that, oh, the priority is that let us pay dividend, then the remaining one, we are going to use it to execute a viable project. So that's why I mentioned it here that when a company, I said when a company is putting priority before, company will use the before the company will pay the dividend, before that company will commit to pay the dividend. Why did I remove this? We commit before the company will commit there's commit there. Sorry. Before the company will commit the availability or available profit on capital project, this implies that the dividend is paid. Then the viable project can be what can be executed. So this is called active theory. Hello. Hello.
Hi.
So because of our time, let's look into the type of what? Type of dividend, or let's say forms of dividend. Forms of dividend. How many times I tell you that dividend can be paid in a year?
You said 2 times.
Times. I said one. It can be interim dividend and final dividend. Okay. So forms of dividend that we have, we normally say we have cash dividend when you are paying cash to them through cash dividend. And also when we talk about dividend in form of stock, you can give dividend in form of stock, so a stock dividend. You can give dividend in form of script, issue, or bonus issue. Bonus issue or bonus issue. So this bonus issue can also say, you can call it capitalization. Yes, capitalization issue. Is it that you call it script issue, bonus issue, capitalization issue? And I've already explained that you have to note that dividend can be paid twice a year. I said we have interim dividend, and we have what? Final dividend. Final dividend. So let's quickly look at the application. Application of what? Dividend policy.
Please, can I ask a question?
Policy.
Hello, please, can I ask a question before you
Ask your
move
question,
on? How can we differentiate this interim dividend and final dividend?
Okay. Stop it now. When we say dividend are to be paid, are you with me?
Yes. Yeah, with you.
When we say dividend are to be paid twice in a year, we say One is a what's it called? Interim, and one is final. Basically, interim dividend are those dividends that is paid by a company to a shareholder. Hello? Hello?
Hello, hi. You are
So
with you.
interim dividend are those dividends that the company is paying to their shareholder before the end of the financial year. And prior, when they say prior, what do you mean of prior? Before.
Before.
So that dividend, that dividend that the company is paying to the shareholder before the end of its financial year and prior to the what? Finalization of his financial statement. That's what I mean by interim dividend. When I mentioned before the financial year, sometimes some companies use January to December for their financial year. Probably they now pay that dividend, maybe June. You know, it's January to December. That dividend has to be the dividend that you are paying at the end of the financial year. But when you now pay that dividend June, it means that you pay the dividend before the end of financial year and prior to what? To the finalization of the annual financial statement. Is it clear? Hello? Hello?
Hello, I'm with you. You said I'm prior to finalization of kin.
I said when a company pay a dividend before the financial year or prior the finalization of annual financial statement. So that's what they mean by interim dividend. Is it clear now? Hello?
Okay.
Sorry, sir. Prior to the financialization of the what?
Prior to the annual financial statement. So when we now talk about the final dividend is a dividend that is declared by a company board of directors after the end of financial year. You get it now? That's what I mean by final dividend. So when the dividend is being declared by the board of directors after the end of the financial year. So they are doing this final dividend based on the company audited financial results. So, and this is done and approved by the shareholder at the AGM meeting. So they have to approve it by the shareholder at the annual general meeting, which is the AGM. So that's what they mean by the final dividend. You can see that one is before, one is after. So the interim dividend are the dividend paid to the shareholder before the financial year and prior to what? Prior to finalization of annual financial statement, before they finalize the financial statement. That's what they mean by interim. But final dividend are the dividend paid after the finalization of the financial statement and at the end of the financial year. And this is done through the board of directors with the what's it called? The shareholder at the annual general meeting, which is the AGM. Is it clear?
Yes, thank you. It's clear.
Can we move on, please? Can we move on,
Yes,
please?
you can move on.
So application. So let's look at the application of the dividend policy and let's see how we are going to tackle it. At the recent, At the recent board meeting, of Oando PLC, the director Oando PLC, the director disagree on the policy. Can you guys hear me? On the policy to adopt.
We can.
The policy to adopt between 40% between 40% and 60% dividend payout, dividend payout ratio, given as any per share, EPS, any per share of 432 kobo. So this 432 kobo is the equivalent 432 kobo equivalent to 4 naira 32 kobo. When they say 432 kobo, it's equivalent to 4 naira 32 kobo because 100 kobo is 1 naira. Take note of that. 100 kobo is 1 naira. So when they say 432 kobo, so definitely it is equivalent to 4 naira 32 kobo. Are we there? The chairman was of the opinion that the Myron Gordon model and Professor Water hello, are we following? With a water model, are the most appropriate under the circumstances
I want to cover that song. I want to cover this song.
and the circumstances you are required to produce. You are required to produce the results. You are required to produce the results each scenario. Each scenario based on the two models. Based on the two models. A, if the return on investment is is 9% and the cost of capital I'm busy now. And the cost of capital is 9%. If the return on investment is 9% and the cost of capital is 7.5%. 7.5%. C. Hello, are we there?
Yes, sir.
If the return on investment is 9%,
Okay.
and the cost of capital is 12.6%. So,
Sorry, 12 point what percent?
hello,
12 point what percent?
12.6,
Okay.
12.6%. So, what this implies is that one person should just read for us. Let's see.
Can you hear
One
me?
person should read from us.
At the
One person
recent
should
board,
read.
the recent board meeting of Orlando PLC. At the recent board meeting of Orlando PLC, the director disagree on the policy to adopt. Is it that they disagree or they agree? They disagree on the policy to adopt between 40% and 60% dividend payout ratio, given as earning per share of 432 kobo, equivalent to 4 naira 32 kobo. The chairman was of the opinion that the M. Gordon and Professor Water model are the most appropriate under the circumstances. You are required to produce the results each scenario based on two models. Model A, if the return on investment is 9% and cost of capital is 9%. B, return on investment is 9% and cost of capital is 7.5%. C, if return on investment is 9% and cost of capital is 12.6%.
Okay. So, the model, so you are going to use the two model to calculate or produce the results under the circumstances of A and A, B, C. And when we look at the model, firstly, we look at Gordon model. Gordon model. The Gordon model is that the market value will always be equal to any per share multiplied by 1 minus retention ratio divided by cost of equity minus retention ratio multiplied by return on investment. Return on investment, which is more return on investment. So this is the Gordon model. Then Water model Professor Water model is that the market value will be equal to dividend payout into return on investment, any per share minus dividend divided by cost of equity, everything all over cost of equity. So this is a water model. Then you now begin to solve under each model. When we said about retention, you look at how they are talking about the retention. They said the director disagree on the policy to be adopted between 40% and 60% of dividend payout ratio. So they are talking about 40% and 60% of dividend payout ratio. Then we can start with, because you have to do it, all the dividend payout ratio and based on each model. So at dividend payout ratio of 60%, 40%, that's the first one, 40%. Then we apply the formula based on A. So anytime, are you with me?
Yes.
So anytime you see that return on investment is the same thing without cost of capital, then that company, we call it a normal company. It's a normal company. So when return on investment is equal to cost of capital, then this is a what? A normal company. This is a normal company. That is, their return on investment is equal to cost of capital, is a normal company. Then you cannot apply it as market value. When you are using Gordon's model, then you can apply any per share. You look your question and look at your any per share. Your any per share, it is a 432 kobo, which I said is equivalent to what? 4 naira 32 kobo. 4 naira 32 kobo. Then open bracket, 1 minus retention ratio. So what is your retention ratio? Your retention ratio will be, when something is 100%, you now say your dividend payout is 40%. So how much did you retain? How much do you retain? How many percent did you retain? Out of 100, you say you pay dividend payout of 40%. How many percent are you retain?
60.
60% to 60%. 60%. So note that I'm not using, it is not this 60% that is there I'm using, no. What they are saying is that when you pay out 40%, then you retain 60. But when you pay 60, you will retain 40. That's the meaning. Is it clear? Hello?
Yes.
Hello, can we move on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Divided by cost of equity. So what's the cost of equity? 9%. 9%. Minus B, what's it called? RRR. What will I put there? Retention ratio. What will I put there?
60%.
60%. Multiplied by return on investment. What will I put there? 9%. But return on investment is also 9%. The market value become 4 naira 32 kobo into 1 minus 0.6, because 60% means 0.6, all over 0.09, which is 9%, minus open bracket, 60% means 0.06, multiplied by 9% means 0.09. Are we good to go? Market value become 4 naira 32 kobo into 1 minus 0.6, that should be 0.4, right? Hello, punch your calculator, please. 0.09 minus 0.6 times 0.09. 0.09 times 0.6. What is that? That should be 0.054. 0.054. So market value become 4.32 times 0.4. We have 1.728. 1.728 divided by, what is the down one? Down one, which is 0.09 minus 0.054. We have 0.036. 0.036. So market value, when you divide it, market value become what? Market value become
48. Yeah, boss. 48 the answer.
1.728 divided by 0.036. You have what? 48 naira, right? So market value, it is what? 48 naira. So this is the one under Gordon. Then you look at it from the water. Are we getting this? Hello? Hello?
Hi, we are getting it.
So, okay, we are looking at it from the water. Market value become dividend. What is the dividend that we got? What is the dividend? How will you get your dividend though?
Yeah.
Hello? Please not talk.
Yeah, we are here.
So what is going to be your dividend? If you want to get your dividend, your deal represent dividend. So how will you get your dividend? Okay. So to get your dividend will be any per share, because they are not giving you dividend. Total dividend, yeah. But they only tell you that the dividend payout, right? And how will you calculate, what's it called? How will you calculate Why now? I'm busy, later. To get your dividend, when there is a what? Dividend payout ratio of 40%. So what's going to be the dividend value? So since they are giving you any per share, so any per share will be 1 into 1 minus retention ratio. That's how you get your dividend value. So this one will now be 4.32 into 1 minus retention ratio. What is the retention ratio there? 6% and 60%. Then your dividend, okay, your dividend will now be how much now? 4.32 into 1 minus 0.6. That should be, it will be equal to what we got here now. There's something that we calculated here. You can calculate it, but it will be the same thing with this one because it's the upper one. Yes. That should be 1.728. When you calculate it, your dividend will be 1.728. So since you know your dividend now, you can now apply it in the formula. So market value hello, are we getting this? Hello? Hello? Market value will be 1.728.
Yes, I don't know if others are on.
Plus, what is the small r? What is the small r that is there? Return on investment. So what is the return on investment? 9%. Is it 0.09? Then any per share, it is a 4 naira 32 kobo minus dividend. I've already got the dividend. Dividend is a 1.728. Then divided by cost of capital, and the cost of capital is also 9%. Then everything divided by cost of capital, which is 0.09. Others, are you getting this? So market value become, you can separate it. What this one is telling you that when everything is divided by 0.09, it means that 1.728 divided by 0.09 plus, so I want to separate it. This one also will be 0.09 into 4.32 minus 1.728 divided by 0.09. This one also all over 0.09. So you are separating. It means that the divide will belong to the first one, it also belongs to the second one. So who can punch calculator here so that we do it? The first one, when you divide this, what do you have? Hello, am I talking to one person? Hello?
Please,
The
I
first
repeat.
one will be,
Hi.
the first one will be 19.2. 19.2 plus, what of the second one? You do the second one. It's very straightforward. Just say 0.09, open brackets, 4.32 minus, your calculator can do all, minus 4.32 open bracket 4.32 minus 1.728, close the bracket. Whatever is given, you press is equal to and divide it. That first divide that is there, divided by 0.09. Whatever that gives you, you now divide it again, divided by the what's it called? The down one. Divided by 0.09. 28.8, okay? So 28.8. So when you plus the two, what do you have? 28.8 plus 19.2. You have 48 naira. You can see that there are two modes there. Is producing the market value of what? 48 naira. So the B part.
IB, please, could you move it up a bit?
Is that what?
This no, this is not the latest row. I want to see the last row. Yes, please let me quickly copy this. You can continue.
Okay. So B part. B part is talking about return. It's telling you that return on investment is 9% and the cost of capital it is what? 7.5%. That's the B part. So return on investment is what? 9%. And the cost of capital, it is what? 7.5%. So this implies that return. Oh, sorry, we've not done 60%. Sorry, we are still on A. We are still on A Roman figure 2 then. So you do the 60%. That is, dividend payout ratio is equal to 60%. You know it is 40% that we apply. Then you use the formula again. Market value become any per share, open bracket, 1 minus retention ratio, close the bracket, all over cost of equity.
I'm sorry, what is this ZPR? Dividend
payout ratio.
Okay.
So minus retention ratio multiplied by small r, which is return on investment. So then is what we did the last time again that we are going to do. Just that this time around, your market value will become any per share, it is 4 naira 32 kobo. Open bracket, 1 minus retention ratio. Retention ratio this time around will be 40%. Because when your dividend payout, it is 60%. Then how many percentage that you retain? That's the meaning. Retention ratio. You know that time, the dividend payout is 40. We say retention it is 60. But now, dividend payout, it is 60. Then retention will be 40. Then close the bracket. All over cost of what? Capital, which is 9%, minus retention ratio, 40%, and the return on investment. What's our return on investment on this one?
9%.
How many percent?
9%.
5%, I think.
9%. 9%.
9%.
Okay, 9%. Then we work it. So this one will be 4 naira. 4 naira 32 kobo into 1 minus 40% means 0.4. Close it. Divided by 9% means 0.09. Minus 40% means 0.4. Minus 9% means 0.09. So you can use your calculator and give me final answer if you know how to punch it. So this one is a 4.32.
So the down part is supposed to be much.
1 minus 0.4. That should be 0.6.
0.036.
The down part 0.09 minus 0.4 minus 0.9. 0.4 minus 0.09. We have 0.31 as the down part.
0.036 now, IB.
0. What?
0.036.
Is it down part?
Yes, now 40% multiplied by 0.0.
Hold on. Check the formula again. Is it not 40% times 9%? How come this one now become minus?
Is 0.
Times now.
What?
0.36.
0.036. The market value. So what is the upper one?
2.592.
2.592 all over
0.054.
2.0 2.0
0.054.
0.054. So when you divide it, your market value be what?
It's 48 naira. 48 naira.
48 naira.
48 naira.
Why
Okay.
are we getting the same thing? Because it's a normal business.
Yes.
Or normal.
So we do the same thing to water.
Please, IB, can I see the last calculation before this?
Which one? Which one? Is it that first one?
Yes, yes. Please, let me copy this side, please.
I'm waiting now. So should I move on?
I don't know if he has an history, but if she's
So,
true, we can move on.
You
ẹ jọ
do
ṣáà ibi stroke sókè ni àbí mi rí kankan.
Only the network.
you do the same thing to the other one, which is water.
Okay, thank you.
So market value become dividend plus return on investment, any per share minus dividend divided by cost of capital divided by cost of capital. So you can do this. You can try this as what? Assignment. Assignment. Just follow how we treat it. Then B part. B part are the BI. When your dividend payout ratio is 40%, then return on investment is greater than cost of capital. That is your return on investment. Your return on investment, it is 9%. Then your cost of equity or cost of capital, it is 7.5%. You can see that your return on investment is greater than cost of capital because your return is 9%, cost of capital it is 7%, 7.5%, and this is called are we there? Growth firm.
Yes.
It's called growth firm. There's a growth firm. This is called growth firm. Because return, when your cost of capital is 7.5%, and at the end of the day, return now move to 9%. Obviously, this is growth. This is growth firm. So you do by applying the formula according to Gordon, market value is equal to any per share 1 minus retention ratio all over cost of capital minus retention ratio multiplied by small r, which is return on investment. So you do it as assignment as well. What I need, I've explained it. So as assignment, then you do for both what's it called? Professor Water, which says market value become dividend plus return on investment Any per share minus dividend, close the bracket, divide by what? Cost of capital, everything all over cost of capital. So this one also assignment. So C part. What the C part was saying? It said return on the investment is how many percent? 9%. And cost of capital, it is what? 12%. 12.6% rather. So it means that return is what? Is less than cost of capital. So this is called declining firm. Declining firm, because you can see that firm is declined from the cost of capital is 12.6. Then when they are making return, the return is what? It is 9%. So it means that there's a decline in the business, decline firm. Is it clear? Hello?
Yes. It's clear.
So then use this one as well as assignment. Assignment for both model. Assignment for both model. So let's look at another illustration.
Please, please, snap this question for me. I didn't write.
Question. Okay.
So question 2. Question 2. Cumberland PLC has just made earnings. Of 450,000. 450,000. It is its director. Its directors are trying to decide a dividend policy. A dividend policy if they retain 20% of earnings. They retain 20% of earnings. Now, hello, are we there? Hello?
Hi.
Hello? Are we all there?
Aye.
Now,
Yes.
look at where I even stopped. When the director, they make earnings of 450,000, and the director are trying to decide a dividend policy. So out of that decision is that they was looking at it from the angle of what if we retain 20% of retained earnings. So imagine when they retain 20%, how many percentage is the dividend they paid out?
80%.
80%.
80%. So that's the logic. So if they retain 20% of retains, that is 20% of their profit. So obviously the dividend payout will be 80%. So let's continue. They think they can achieve an annual growth rate in earnings. Again, in earnings and dividend and a dividend of 5%. If they retain only 10%, of earnings, the growth rate would hold on for me, please. The growth rate would expect a return of 14%, which retention policy would maximize the value of the company. The value, who can read this one for us? The value of the company shares. Somebody should read this. Somebody should read it, please.
Is this all?
Yes.
Cumberland PLC has just made earnings of 450,000 naira. Its directors are trying to decide a dividend policy. If they retain 20% of earnings, they think they can achieve an annual growth rate in earnings and dividend of 5% if they retain only 10% of earnings. The growth rate would expect a return of 14%. Retention policy will materialize the value of the company share.
Okay. Now, so solution. So you have to note this. Note you have to note this. So when you are dealing with, when you are dealing with dividend relevance, when you are dealing with dividend relevance theory, relevant theory, you have to take note of these two things. Without growth, if you are dealing with dividend relevance theory without growth, the formula, it is always market value is equal to D naught all over cost of equity minus cost of equity D naught over cost of equity, which is D naught. So the second thing that you need to note is that dividend policy, dividend relevant theory, when you are dealing with dividend relevant theory, according to dividend relevant theory with growth, with growth. So this will become market value will be D naught we call it DO, D naught into 1 plus growth rate all over cost of equity minus growth rate. So this is the formula when you discover that you are dealing with dividend relevant theory and the question given to you is without growth and also with growth. So you can now apply them in that question. Hope it's clear. Hello. Hello. Hello.
We are here.
Okay. So now, when the question was telling you that there is earnings of what? 450,000.
450,000. Yes.
And the company retained 20%. That is, they keep 20%. If they keep 20%, it means that the dividend payout will be what? 80%. So
Yes.
that person should move, please. So company retained. So if company retain 20%, which means they what? They paid out. They paid out what?
80%.
They paid out 80%. Then we can now look at the value. Value paid out. Then calculate the value paid out. The value paid out. Which is equal to 80%. That person should move, please. 80% multiplied by 450,000. Because 450,000, it is the total profit. So if they retain 80, it means that if they retain 20, it means that 80% was paid out. Then what is the value of that paid out? So calculate it. 80% of 450. 80% of 450,000. So 360,000 naira was paid out. 360,000 was paid out. So if 360,000 was paid out, how much was retained? Just say minus 450. So 90,000 was retained. That's the meaning. 90,000 was retained. 90,000 was retained. Then 360 was paid out. So you can now use it with your formula. But you have to check. Please hold on for me. Just give me like 2 minutes, please. Hi, Rajasha. You raised your hand. Ask your question, please. You can ask your question, please. So anyway, so now you can continue and look at the formula I gave. Are you using the formula with growth or? Hello.
Hi.
Okay. So let's continue. So you can continue by saying you look at the formula that I gave, and this question that you want to solve, is it the one with growth or without growth? So you first look at it very well. It's something that is easy to identify. See, when they retain 20%, they think they can achieve annual growth rate in earnings and dividend of 5%. That first scenario, it is with growth rate. Then Dino, hope you are getting it. Dino will be 1 plus growth rate, close it, all over KE minus growth rate. So this is what you are using, because they are telling you that if they retain 20%, they think they can achieve the growth rate in earnings and dividend of 5%. Then we can apply it. So market value will now become, what's our DINO now? Dividend that we calculated, that the dividend payout 360. Are we listening, please? 1 plus, what is the growth rate? 5%. 5% means 0.05. That means of 5%. 5 divided by 100. Then all over cost of capital. So we can now continue. They said if they retain only 10%, the growth rate will be 2%, and the shareholder will expect a return of 14%. So that's the cost of equity. Cost of equity, that's the return of what? 14%. And 14% means 0.14. 14% means 0.14. Then minus growth rate again. The growth rate is what? 0.05, which is 5%. Are we there? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Okay, 360,000. Open bracket. 1 plus 1.0, that means it will be 1.05 when you plus that side. All over 0.14 minus 0.05. 0.14 minus 0.05. What do you have? You have 0.09. 0.09. 0.09. The market value become, when you multiply the upper one, 360,000 multiplied by 1.05, it becomes 378,000.
Yes.
378,000 divided by 0.09. So when you divide it, that final answer divided by 0.09, you have 4,200,000. So 4,200,000. That is the market value. The market value is what? 4 million.
But that's not what I'm.
That person should move, please. 4,200,000. Then we look at another way, another scenario that says if they only retain 10%, option 2. That first one is first option when they mention 20%. Where did I put it? Option 1. This is option 1. So let's look at the option 2. Option 2. So option 2, when they retain, if the company retain 10%, then the dividend payout ratio, will be what?
90%.
Will be 90%. So if the company retain 10%, then the dividend payout ratio will be what? 90%. So therefore, okay. So therefore, the value, okay, I'm busy later. So that the value of the dividend, the value of the dividend paid, will be 90% multiplied by what? 450,000. Hope it's clear. Which is equal to how
Yes,
much?
that's 405,000. 405,000. 405,000.
At the 405,000. So this is what you apply again in the formula, but you have to check that option 2. Is it with growth or without growth? Let's continue. They said if they retain only 10% of the earnings, the growth rate will be only 2%. So that means it is with growth rate. Dinner into WACC plus growth rate all over return on investment, that is cost of equity minus growth rate. So this implies that market value.
Sorry.
Go
I
ahead,
want to
please.
read that part again. If they retain only 10% of earnings, the growth rate would expect a return of 14%. I did not write that 2%.
No. There's 2%, right?
Me only 2%. Please let me see the question from your mind.
10%.
See,
the growth rate.
if they retain 10%, we expect a return of 14%.
The growth, yes, I'll beat you. The growth rate would be 2%. The growth rate would be 2%. And 2% and expected.
And expect a return of
14%, yes.
Okay.
So, do you know that is a 405 into 1 plus growth rate, which is 0.02, which is 2%, divided by 14%, that is return on investment, which is cost of equity, minus growth rate, 0.02. Market value, are we all there or I'm talking to one person? If you are tired,
Yes,
let me know.
Salami is calling me. I guess she's not there. Me, Robo, anybody want there apart from me? I'm not sure. I'm not sure any of them is online.
We are following.
We are listening.
Okay, 405 plus 1 point, this one is 1.02 when you plus 1 with 0.02. Then divided by 14 is 0.14 minus 0.02. 0.14 minus 0.02. This one becomes 0.12. 0.12. The market value become the upper one, to 405 times 1.02 down to 413,100. 413,100 divided by 0.12. So this one become, when you divide, so divided by 0.12, you have 3 million 442,500. 3 million 442,500. So this is the market value for the two options. So as a result of the option 1 and 2, you now look at which decision is good. Comment. So when you retain 20%, what do you have as your market value? You have 4.2 million. But when you retain 10%, your market value, it is a 3,400,000. And which one is higher?
4,200,000 when we
So
retain
that the comment will now be
20%.
since retention of 20% brings higher market value of 4.2 million compare compare with retention of 10%. Then company should retain 20%. That's all. Is it clear?
Yes. Hello?
Hello, I'm with you.
Sorry, not to.
Huh? Hello.
I was
Hello.
not referring to you. Sorry. I picked somebody else's.
Okay. Question 3. Hope we are not tired. If you are tired, let me know so that we can call it a day. Are we tired?
Is your own glasses?
Can we continue?
Yes.
I'm not there yet.
Who is that? Question 3. Ewele PLC expect to achieve earnings next year of 2,400,000. And this will continue in perpetuity. This will continue in what? Perpetuity. Without any growth at all. Without any growth. Any growth at all. Without any growth at all. Unless a proportion of earnings. Are we still there? Of earnings.
Yes.
Are retained. How many of us are still there now? Are retained. Are retained. If the company retain 1/3. So what happened is, once they said they retain fraction, immediately you hear that what they retain is a form of fraction, because 1/3 is a fraction. Then the one they paid out will definitely be, that time we are talking about percentage. If they retain 20%, the percentage payout will be 80. But once they mention that it is fraction, you are considered the fraction from 1. You say 1 minus 1/3 to know the one they paid out. But if it is in form of percentage, it is 100% minus whatever they retain. If they retain 30, it will be 100% minus 30%. Then what they pay, it is 70. But once they retain fraction always take from 1. You just say 1 minus 1/3. Because 1/3 is what they retain. Just look for the SCM. So the SCM of this one, it is 3. So 1 in 3. 3 times 1, 3. Minus 3 in 3, 1. 1 times 1, that is there, 1. Then when you do it, you have 2/3. It means that once they said they retain 1/3, then 2/3 is the one they paid. So that's in fraction. So whatever anytime they mention fraction of retain, then if you want to calculate the one they paid, you have to use 1. 1 minus that retention to know what they paid. So that's this. So retain 1/3 of its earnings. Of its earnings and annual growth rate in earnings. Annual growth rate in earnings and dividend of 9% per annum, 9% per annum in perpetuity could be achieved. Could be achieved. Alternatively, if the company were to retain if the company were to retain 2/3, that is 2/3. So like this one now, if you want to calculate, if the company retain 2/3, so if you want to calculate, you just calculate it from say 1 minus 2/3. So that you look for the SCM. So the SCM is 3, 1 in this is over 1. So 1 in 3, 3 times 1, 3, minus 3 in 3, 1. 1 times 2, 2. So when you minus it will be 1/3. You can see if the company retained 2/3, it means that they paid 1/3. That's the meaning about how to go with fraction. So 2/3 of its retains, of its earnings of its earnings and annual growth rate in earnings. And dividend of 12%. 12% per annum in perpetuity. in perpetuity could be achieved. Could be achieved. Are we there, please?
Yes.
Could be achieved. The return currently required, the return currently required by Ewele PLC shareholder is 16%. This is our return. 16%. If retention if the retention of 1/3 were made, retention of 1/3 were made, if the retention of 1/3 were made, the return will rise. Return will rise. Return will rise to 19%. So if they made retention of 1/3, so obviously the return will just rise to 19%. That is from 16% toward to 19%. From 16% towards to 19%. And are we there, please? And
Yes, yes.
And if retention were 2/3, that is 2/3. If the retention of 2/3, hold on for me, please. If the retention were 2/3 of earnings, 2/3 of earnings, of earnings, the return required are we there? Are we there?
Yes, yes.
The return required would be
Yes.
okay, would be 24%. Required. Required. What is the optimum what's the optimum policy? What's the optimum retention policy? Optimum retention policy. What's the optimum retention policy for a PLC? So, who can read this for us?
Ewele PLC expect to achieve earnings next year of 2,400,000, and this will continue in perpetuity without any growth unless a proportion of earnings are retained. If the company retained 1/3 of its earnings and annual growth rate in earnings and dividend of 9% per annum in perpetuity could be achieved. Alternatively, if the company were retaining 2/3 of its earnings, an annual growth rate in earnings and dividend of 12% per annum in perpetuity could be achieved. The return currently required by Ewele PLC shareholder is 16%. If retention of 1/3 were made, the return will rise to 19%. And if retention were 2/3 of earnings, the return required will be 24%. Required, what is the optimum retention policy for Ewele PLC?
Okay, good. What this implies is that the first statement says Ewele PLC expect to achieve earnings next year of 24 million. That is their earnings of the next year. It is worth 24 million.
2 million.
And this will continue in perpetuity without any growth. It means that from this first sentence, there is no growth rate, and this will continue in perpetuity. That is infinite without any growth rate at all. You can see at all. So it means that there is no growth rate here. Then we look at the second one here. They say unless a proportion of earnings are retained. So it means that it is when a proportion of earnings are retained before there will be growth rate. From the first sentence, they are planning, they are expect to achieve earnings next year of 2.4 million. And this will continue in perpetuity without any growth. So there won't be any growth at all. Before they can say there will be growth, unless that money, if there will be a retention. So it means that the first one, there won't be any retention. That's the meaning. That's the first option. There won't be any what? Retention. That is option one.
There won't be any retention.
So solution to option one. Option 1, if no retention. If no retention, and there won't be what? There won't be growth rates. So growth rates will be nil. No growth rate. That's what the question was telling you. If there is no retention, there is no growth rate. If you read it very well, that they are planning to achieve earnings of 2.4, and this will continue in perpetuity without any growth rate at all. So before they can be thinking of growth rate, unless that money, that 2.4 million, there's a retention in it. So it means that the first option is that no retention. So if there's no retention, they are telling us that no growth rate at all. So the formula of market value will be what? D no. That is the formula without growth rate. Will be what? All over cost of equity. So therefore, the market value will not be, the dividend will be 2.4 million because we don't have any retention in it. It means that all the money, it is what we are used as what? Dividend. We did not retain anything. Then the cost of equity, we now check and see what the cost of equity that was telling us. They said there will be the return currently required. That current situation, the one for no retention. So that return on investment, it is what? 16%.
Yes.
Hope is clear. So the return currently required, that current
IB, sorry, the 16%, is it the 16% that is the last part?
Yes.
That is at the last part.
Yeah, the return.
They said the return currently required by Ewele PSC is 16% if retention of 1 over 3 were made.
Ewele PSC shareholder, it is 16%. Full stop.
Okay, full stop. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the current one, that is the 16% when we are talking about without retention. So that is their retained earnings. I say retained earnings. Return. The return, which is 16%. 16% means 0.16. Then what do we have? Just say 2.4 million divided by 16%. We have 15 million.
Yes, 15 million.
15 million. So we move to option 2. Option 2. So we read further to see what option 2 was saying. They said if the company retain 1 over 3, if they retain 1 over 3, what will happen to the growth rate? So if the company retain 1 over 3 of its retained earnings, and the growth rate in the retained and dividend is what? 9% per annum in perpetuity, could be what? Could be achieved. So if you retain 1 over 3, then the growth rate will be 9%. So if you retain 1 over 3, obviously, how much is your dividend payout? That's what we are going to look at. And I said, whenever they are giving you fraction, if company retain, if company retains 1/3, then the dividend payout ratio, that DPR, will be equal to 1 minus 1 over 3. So which is equal to 2/3. So 2/3 is their dividend payout ratio. Therefore, hope is cleared.
Yes.
Therefore, the value of dividend paid will be what? 2/3 times 2.4 million. This is what they will pay. Because if they retain 1/3, the ratio is the one that they will pay is 2/3. Then what is now going to be the value? Out of 2.4 million profits, they are going to pay 2/3. So let's calculate 2/3 of that money so that we know our dividend.
That is 1.6 million.
1.6 million. Good. $1.6 million. Then we can apply it in the formula. Market value will be deno, open bracket, 1 plus, because this time around we are going to use growth rate because they are telling us that the growth rate is how many percent? What is the growth rate when there is a retention of 1/3? 9%. So definitely our formula will contain growth rate formula. So cost of equity minus growth rate. So always understand the reason why we are putting G. So dividend now, it is 1.6 million. Open bracket, 1 plus growth rate. Growth rate is 9%, and 9% means 0.09. Close it. All over return. So what's the return? Return. I think they said the return will increase. They mentioned it somewhere. They said if retention of 1/3 were made, if the retention of that 1/3 were made, you know it is 1/3 we are doing now. If they continue somewhere, if the retention of 1/3 were made,
rise to
19%. Okay, so definitely the return here now will not be 19%, which is 0. It will not be 16% again. 19%, which is 0.9 minus growth rate. Growth rate is 9%, that is 0.09. I hope it's cleared. Hello.
Yes.
Okay. Market value will be $1 million to 1.09. But when you plus down, divided by, when you minus the down part, what do you have? 0.19 minus 0.09. We have 1 point. We have a 0.10.
0.1.
So what do you have? The upper one. 1.6 million.
1,744,000.
1.09. 1,744,000.
Yes.
Divided by 0.10. Then what do you have?
17,440,000.
40,000.
17 what?
17,440,000.
Divided by, I'm coming, 0.1. $17,440,000. Hope it's clear.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay. So let's look at option 3.
Please help me to scroll up before you move to option 3. Sorry.
Hello.
Hello?
Okay, I'm back. This network. I'm even looking for
Your
my
screen
history.
is no more visible.
Okay, I'm coming. So I'm looking for the document that I used just now. God. I'm unable to see this again. Where is it now? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Seriously, is this thing not safe? Oh God. Like seriously, I can't see.
What do you need? We are in option 3. We can be reading it.
Okay. So I have to open another board. Is it this one? No, come here. Oh, come here, I'm busy. So I did not see it. So you can read the option.
Alternatively, if the company were to retain 2/3 of the earnings and annual growth rate in earnings and dividends of 12% per annum, perpetuity could be achieved. That is option 3.
Okay. So what happened is when the retention is 2/3, right? Then what is going to be the one they paid? So if they
1
retain
over
2/3,
1/3.
obviously they pay 1/3. Then to know the value of what they pay is by say you are calculating 1/3 of 2.4 million. How much is that?
800,000.
800,000.
Yes.
Okay, so you can use that one as what? Assignment. So go and try it and calculate the option 3 as what? Assignment.
Okay.
I believe that you'll be able to do it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Shall we call it a day?
Sure.
Thank you.
You can use that one as what? Assignment.
Thank
All
you.
right.